Arfield, what a bully! Scott Arfield! He's been threatening that recently, and all the Burnley players run to the Darwin end.
Burnley win the next ball. It's Rory now. On the outside, decent.
He got it! Ashley Barnes with it! What a cross from Rory! And there was Ashley Barnes, and Burnley leading the derby.
Obviously quickly finds Benson in space at the byline. Can Burnley get a goal here? Back for Brownell. Saved by the keeper.
Burnley won it to the end. That is magnificent. They deserve that.
Only by Paul Teller. Off for a hat-trick.
He's got it. Hat-trick for Nathan Teller. Oh, he's on fire at the minute. 3-0 Burnley. It's Nathan Teller's day. And Burnley are 3 up here. Fantastic derby.
Here's Benson. Can he go on the outside? Comes inside. Have a shot.
Oh, what a goal. Manuel Benson once more. That is top class. Burnley have done it. Fantastic. Clarets deserve the championship title. They've been the best side throughout the campaign. Burnley have won the second tier. What a fantastic achievement. The players have been magnificent.
Yes, hello everybody. Welcome along to the latest episode of the TurfCast podcast. Full-time show here on the TurfCast podcast YouTube channel with me, Joe Redmond, after Blackburn's incredible win at Turf Moor yesterday. Oh, that's certainly how they celebrated the 1-1 draw. But of course, it was Burnley 1, Blackburn 1. Decent derby. I really enjoyed it. Get your comments coming in, obviously apart from the fact that we didn't win it, but I did enjoy the actual battle, as I said in my pre-game show. But keep your comments coming in. It's good to see some of the usual names in the chat. Claret Al says, evening, all evening, buddy. Claret and Blue 82 says, evening, Clarets. Claret Blue 82 says, come on, Joe, don't make us wait 14 years for the show to start. There's something about waiting 14 years, isn't there, at the minute? Scott Sullivan says he's still helping Benson down the touchline. We will be talking about Benson, to be fair. Ginger Ali goes on to slag me off as well, but he also says, afternoon, guys. So, yeah, it's good to see you all. It's good to see you all. Claret Blue 82 says, for all we know, Joe might have been sold in the transfer window to Ipswich. Thankfully, we haven't. Scott Sullivan says, Mr. Redmond, can't we see you in the office regarding your timekeeping? I do apologise, lads, but we were only a couple of minutes late, and it was my fault this week. I can't blame it on Sam. I was making a brew. And when I came into the room, Sam was already here chatting to everybody because he's got the login, and I completely forgot. He was just chatting to everyone. Andrew Blythe is in the chat, evening. Matt Lowcock's in the chat, evening. John Angus says, full house. Tony says, good evening, TurfCast. Paul Walker says, hi, boys. And Moretti Marus says, good evening, lads. Hope everyone is well. I'll just quickly squeeze you in there, Milltown Bingle. He said, evening, lads. Any more evening or hellos will be ignored, unfortunately. But get your comments coming in. Obviously, I want to know your thoughts on the game. I will quickly go to the lads on this one. And I'll come to you, Sam, first, because obviously Andrew and Chris both did a fan reaction. So those of you who watched the fan reactions will have seen Andrew and Chris's debates. Sorry, Platinum Darts, but you missed it. Debates on what they think. And they actually had different opinions as well. So it'd be interesting to get their thoughts on the game as well. But Sam, I'll come to you first. What were your thoughts on yesterday's draw with Blackburn?
I think for me personally, only one team wanted to win the game. And I think it was very clear to see that it was us. They had one moment of brilliance, and you can't, unfortunately, take that away from them. It was a brilliant goal, so you have to give them credit in some sense, I believe, to that. I think overall, I think we were the better team. I think it kind of just showed that it showed through that we're still a new team, young team with a new manager, trying to implement his style of play with players who weren't here since pre-season. It was very much a, not a thrown together 11, but very much it was a quick turnover of people that played against Luton in comparison to people who started that game. I think overall wise, I'm pretty happy with the performance. I just think we need a little bit more bite rather than bark. I think it's all well and good being able to play in and around the box. But if you can't penetrate a low block, then again, saying that we had this under company for the first kind of month, 2 months, we couldn't break a low block. We dominated possession, dominated the ball. I thought they were poor yesterday. I mean, obviously I'm going to say that, but I thought they were really poor yesterday, other than the one moment that changed the game for them. And congratulations to them for winning a 1-1 draw. I'd be quite embarrassed with a celebration like that at full time for a 1-1 draw. We all came off pretty disappointed after, the red card and having about 25 minutes to try and win the game. And unfortunately, we couldn't make that happen. We came off disappointed. They came off elated. And I think that just shows to me that where we're at and how far they've fallen from where they think they are or where they were.
Yeah.
It shows who the best club in Lancashire is, and the club with the most ambition, unfortunately, couldn't get it done yesterday. And sometimes that's football. You have to give them credit for the goal, but at the same time, positive signs, and we can take that into the next couple of games, hopefully.
Yeah, fair enough. Completely agree with the majority of that. I do think that we were the better side, as Claret Al says there in the chat. 70% possession. I think it was 77 actually. But my worry is, as Sam did, sort of like make a point of, is we didn't do enough with that 77% possession. But a lot of that, in my opinion, I mean, it is a fact. We a lot of our players met each other during the week. So for us to play the way that we did and to completely dominate possession, probably not, like I said, not create enough chances, but to play the way we did, I thought showed promise for the rest of the season. I genuinely was worried for the derby because of the ridiculous week that we had in the transfer market. We had such a disruptive week. I put that on Twitter, and someone who's known for being negative constantly on Twitter did comment back saying, "Oh, you can't really be using that as an excuse." Like, it's not an excuse; it's a fact. We had a massive week of disruption, and for us to be able to play in the way that we did, I think it is promising signs. Obviously, it wasn't enough for the game, but yeah, some teams are going to come to the turf, the lesser sides, and they are going to do a low block, and that's exactly what Blackburn did. I think what Blackburn did well, and I'll give them credit not just for the goal, is that I thought they defended well, but it is like we said, a low block, 9 men behind the ball after the big lad got sent off. Gay, you know what? I think the red card, and again, this isn't me making excuses. I thought the red card made it more difficult for us. As soon as he got sent off, I was comfortable that we weren't going to lose the match. Obviously, they did actually have another counter, I think, not long after, where I remember doing that, thinking, here we go. So that nearly ended up capitulating. But I did think that as soon as that lad got sent off, they didn't have that outlet, because that's all they were doing, weren't they? They were lumping the ball up to him. He were heading it down, and they did that very well. He's very good at that, and the goalkeeper was very good at finding him. And that's obviously how they scored the goal. But when that lad got sent off, I thought they're not going to have that outlet anymore, and they're just going to sit back. And that's exactly what they did. But it's up to us to have the quality to be able to penetrate these kind of teams, because a lot of them are going to come to Turf Moor and do that. These bottom half sort of sides and the relegation threatened sides, that's exactly what they're going to do. I think Blackburn are probably one of the better teams at doing that, because Eustace is a very good manager at organising this sort of thing. So I think that will be probably one of the hardest low blocks we face this season. But they came with a game plan, and I'll give them credit for executing that game plan very well. I don't think we can sit here as Burnley fans and just sit there and say, "Oh, what a load of rubbish, you can't play like that." It's not nice to watch when we did that for like 8 years under Sean Dyche. So I give them credit in that sense. I think fair play. They defended quite well. They had a game plan, and they executed it very well. The referee, I do feel like, kind of ruined the game though. But when he got sent off, obviously I wasn't interested in that. You can't be doing dissent and things like that. But again, at the same time, in derbies, should you be letting these sort of things go? But there were so many flying tackles from them. They were kicking 10 bells of shit out of us at one point. And I just remember thinking, they're going to get one of these guys sent off here. Obviously they did, but it weren't for something like that. But yeah, we were the better side, but we just couldn't make it count, unfortunately. And I do feel like we're going to have to show more as the season goes on to be able to break these kind of teams down. But as Sam said, it's a new team, so I do think we will get better. Promising signs from the new team, in my opinion, but we need a little bit more. And as good as Coley Ocho was in terms of his drive, he needs better end product, because so many times he got into a position and they give the ball away or hit the cross too deep or whatever. Chris, I'll come to you next. Your thoughts on the game, please, mate.
I think, like we've said on here before, it was a bad time for us to play him. I think if you could have picked when do you want to play Blackburn, I don't think any fan would ever have picked like in August when we're like still kind of in transition from a new manager to the next. We didn't know whether we were coming or going with players and things like that. You certainly wouldn't have picked the first game after the transfer window to have that game. So I think with them, like that's the main mitigating factor in why I think people will accept that a draw was more acceptable because of like the week we'd had, the window we'd had, the circumstances. I think the draw becomes more acceptable. I think for me, I said in my fan reaction, I don't think personally we did enough to win the game. I think when you huff and puff, we got the goal, get ahead, and then you can't even legislate for that equaliser. There's nothing you can do. You've just got to sit back and say that's just a top draw goal. Like people in the chat have been saying Trafford should save that. Like we could have had Trafford and Gladkey in goal, and you wouldn't have saved that. It's just a freak goal, and sometimes you just got to take your hat off and say that's fantastic, and that's it. Go on. But for me, like Sam said, it was just that in the final third, we just didn't have that cutting edge. We were like all bark, no bite, just didn't really create anything. And that's not me being negative, and I don't think that'll be the case all season. But yesterday, taking it at face value, we didn't create enough, if anything, really. After we scored, I can't think of a single chance we created where I think, yeah, we should have scored that. We should have gone 2-0 up, or we should have gone 2-1 up. We didn't create anything. We were getting into the final third. Like everything, like in defence, in midfield, working that ball up to the edge of the box. We were great. We were all over him. That, like Sam said, there was only one side who came to win that game, and it was us. But actually creating something in the final third is where we struggled. Like we had the players, we had all the tools there to do it. We had the players. But to me, the main issue yesterday and why we could kind of, I don't want to say he was the reason why, Foster was playing like far too deep for me yesterday. When he drops in,
he does it a lot. Yeah,
he does it a lot. And to me, that's when once Foster starts overcomplicating things, he comes in, he has 4 or 5 touches. That's when Foster doesn't look great because he loses the ball. Foster's good when he just touches it, passes it off, moves, and then he's in the box, which is how he comes to score. Like when you're between them sticks, that's why you're scoring goals. When you're 30 yards from goal thinking you're Harry Kane, Lyle, that's why you're scoring 4 a season. Get in the box, keep it simple, and you'll score goals in this system because we've got the players to create chances. It's just yesterday, it didn't really happen for us. And as much as it pains me to say it, and it'll pain all of us to say it, Blackburn played well. Like Blackburn stopped us from playing. Like they defended well. Sometimes you've just got to be honest, regardless of who it is, and say, they just defended well and stifled us, stopped us playing. They were horrible to play against, tackles. It was just a horrible game. And we'll have more of them this season, but I've no doubt once we get into like October, November, players have bedded in. The manager knows his best team because he still doesn't yet. We should be able to break these teams down. But to me, yesterday, that it was just a bit early to play them.
Yeah. I agree with that. I do agree we didn't do enough to win the game. I did say myself, I felt that they defended well. I'm happy, by the way, for Blackburn fans to be in the chat. I've had to block one already. But I'm happy for them to be in the chat if they're just going to talk about the game properly. But when you start, saying some of the things that the guy I had to block said, then you will get blocked. And by the way, I understand people can sit there and say Blackburn defended well, and they did, and they came with a game plan, and they did, and they executed that game plan very well. I've just said that myself. But nobody, apart from Blackburn fans, will think that they were the better side as well. They only came to play one way, and they did it well, which is exactly what I said. But there's no chance anybody, apart from a Rovers fan, can think that they were the better side because they just wasn't. Andrew, your thoughts on the game then, please, mate. Come to you next.
Yeah, I thought overall it was a good game. Like, if I was watching it as a neutral, I'd have been absolutely buzzing. Like, I thought it was a good game. I think, like you said, it was a proper derby with the tackles going in and the atmosphere and just everything about it. Felt like it was the first time in God knows how long that it was an even derby. Like almost we were on a level playing field, but they didn't come to play football. They came to sit back and defend a draw and maybe nick a goal
they came to shit house
counter attack. Yeah, which like I say, can't complain about because we did that for years under Dyche. So, you know, if we'd have done that back in there when they were half decent and got a draw, we'd probably have celebrated similar. But it tells you everything, like how much they're celebrating this 1-1 draw with the first goal they've scored against us in 10 years and still not beating us for 14. But yeah, I thought we did well considering our lads had only just met each other. We had 2 in the starting 11 who we'd only signed like the last couple of days. But yeah, I thought we did decent. Thought we played well. Yeah, I just wish that we could have nicked a winner. And I think yesterday I said we should have won that game. The more I've thought about it, we did a lot that we didn't do last season, where we weren't shooting, we were getting into the good positions and then not taking a shot, and they'd nick the ball away from us. Yeah. And I think that'll come with time. Like it was very reminiscent of the early company days and last year. It'll come with time. The lads will grow in confidence. We've still got Fleming to come into the team as well. Sarmiento had a little bit of a cameo, but yeah, once the lads get going and know each other a bit more, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll get into the new lads in a little bit, but there's been a few comments about their goal. Some people blaming James Trafford. Obviously, I know Chris has kind of glossed over it a little bit, but I'll come to you on that, Andrew. Well, I'll say first of all, how anyone can think that goal was James Trafford's fault is absolutely beyond me. I saw a few people on Twitter. Trafford was okay in the game. He made a save from one of their low block counter attacks where they came into our own half for one of the few times where they actually did, and he made a decent save there, but it kind of like weirdly looped over, but then eventually he got hold of it. And the only thing that Trafford did wrong was that ridiculous goal kick. Pass out in like the 15th second. That was the only thing he did wrong. The goal, in my opinion, was just a great goal. He can try that another 100 times, and it'll only go in once. Like, it was just one of them where he just got everything right, and it was a brilliant goal. I won't say it was lucky because he tried to do it, so it's not lucky. But if he tried to do it again tomorrow, like I said 50 times, I don't think he'd score any of them. But I don't understand how anybody can blame James Trafford. Some people were saying like he should have been on his line. You got to remember this came from the Blackburn Rovers goal kick. What goalkeeper is going to be on his line at that point? They lumped it up front, which is what they did every pretty much chance they got. The big lad headed it down, and then obviously it fell to Weimann, who scored a great goal. It's just one of them things. There's no way Trafford should be on his line at that point. Some people saying if he took a step back, he'd have saved it. It was obviously pedalling back when it went in. It was very similar, as somebody said in the chat earlier, to that Micah Hyde goal against Brad Friedel in 2005, something like that. I don't understand how anyone can blame James Trafford. And if it were Hladky in the net, I don't think anybody would have turned around and said it was Hladky's fault. I just think there's sometimes people dislike Trafford, and I've been critical of him in the past, and just see that exactly and just think, oh, it's Trafford's fault. It weren't Trafford's fault. It was just a brilliant, brilliant finish. Andrew, I'll come to you first because I think you were a goalkeeper back in the day when you used to play football, and I know you're a big fan of goalkeepers and stuff like that. Obviously, Brian Jensen being your hero when you were a kid. What are your thoughts on the James Trafford situation with the goal? And obviously not his fault, but do you think it was, or just a great strike?
No, I think at first when it happened, I thought he could have done better. But the more you see it, it's one of them where, like you say, he hits that 100 more times, it's going to go in once. Like, it was just one of them, and credit to him because you know how much we all hate him, but it was one of them goals that no one can do anything about. I think Oxford scored something similar against him last week, so he's probably seen that and thought, well, if they can do it, we can have a go. But like I say, if they'd have scored from that cock up in the first 15 seconds from Trafford, I'd have been fuming. I'd have been like, how the hell have you conceded that? But that goal yesterday, can't knock him for that. And he made a decent save in the second half. Like, there was one where I think it's like the 50th minute, what their lad's coming down, and you want Worrell to get ball off him, and ends up getting a shot away, and Trafford makes a really good save. I think because of the stigma he's got from last season, people will just blame him for no reason. But I think everyone needs to think like this season's a full clean slate. It's a fresh start for everyone. The lad's still only 21. He's got time to grow. He's got time to get a chance. But it was, like you say, a hell of a goal. Not much you could have done about it.
Nothing Trafford could have done about it, in my opinion. Like I said, I saw some people on Twitter yesterday, and there's been a couple in the chat as well, which, it's all about opinions, but I just don't see how anybody could blame Trafford. Harry here says, I think he could have come and claimed the ball, was stuck to his line. I'm not sure if Harry's been sarky, to be fair there. But not for me. Just nothing he could have done. Sam, you were nodding along. I presume you agree that there's nothing Trafford could have done about that?
No, mate. I mean, sometimes you just have to sit back and say it were a good goal. I mean, regardless of opponent, as human beings, you shouldn't really, sit on as high horse over stuff like that, really. Like, we don't like them, but it's a good goal. Like, let's be fair. There's not many goalkeepers that had a save that. It's just a good finish. And I agree with Andrew. People will have a stigma towards him. I was the same at the start of the season before I knew that he was staying, because, you do fall into that trap when you find out things like he's liking comments about going to Newcastle and things like that. They're the personable side. That's the personable side of football, where you think, if you don't want to be here, like, how can you back him? But if he's a Burnley player in a Burnley shirt, people thought the exact same when Muric came in. They made a mistake at Blackpool, and then look at how people felt when he left. We thought we'd lost our best goalkeeper. So you've just got to, you've just got to back the players that play for the club. He will be a good goalkeeper. I think this is the level that he should be at. I think this is the level that he should have been at before last season. Anyway, I don't think a goalkeeper can go straight from League One to the Premier League and really make an impact. I don't think you see many players in any position do that, really. So I think you need to give the kid some credit. I agree with Andrew. Dolan could have scored on the 50th minute. We could have been 2-1 down, chasing a game in comparison to trying to turn a draw into a win. So, you have to give him credit from a fan's perspective. I don't think he did that much wrong in the game, apart from the fact that, we conceded out of what felt like nowhere, but it's not his fault that they scored a worldie. You just have to take that. I wouldn't really be jumping on that bandwagon of Trafford's let us down, because a lot of goalkeepers have conceded that.
Yep, fair enough. Just a quick comment from Daz in the chat. He says, how is Neil doing, lads? Hopefully he's back on the show soon. He's just busy with a very young baby. That's pretty much it, mate. I'm sure he'll be back on at some point when she gets a little bit older and more independent. So it might not be for a while, to be fair, but he's fine because he's still in the WhatsApp chat. And trust me, he's fine. Right, obviously, with a lot of new lads played yesterday. Hannibal obviously started, Worrell started, Anthony started, and Laurent started, and then we had Sarmiento coming off the bench. I think potentially I've even missed one there because there were that many. Chris, I'll come to you first on that one. What did you think of the new lads then? I was the most underwhelmed by the signing of Laurent, but I thought he was absolutely fantastic yesterday, and I think he's been slept on. He was fantastic yesterday. He's your typical Jack Cork type of player. I'm not for 1 second saying he's as good as Jack Cork, but he does the dogged stuff. He will sit there, do all the stuff that fans don't get off the chairs for, the stuff that needs doing, protecting the back four, breaking the player down, doing the sideways pass out to the more creative players, and then letting them do the work. I think Josh Brownhill yesterday was fantastic because Laurent did all the dirty work for him. So he was, in my opinion, even though Anthony was good as well, probably the best of the new lads yesterday. What were your thoughts then, Chris, on the new lads? Because obviously we had Hannibal, Worrell, like I said, Anthony, Laurent, and Sarmiento. With apologies if I've missed somebody.
If I was going to pick one of the new lads who I thought was the best, it wouldn't have been Laurent. I watched him and I got home on Twitter and I had a look and I thought, have I missed something here? He did the basics really well, but it was just basic. I agree. It was just basic.
You just need
stuff.
That player though, don't you?
Yeah,
I think you just need that player.
I sat and watched that game, and to me, I thought, wow, we missed Josh Cullen so much. I think personally, and lads might disagree, but when Cullen's back, he comes and pushes Laurent straight back out because
Probably does. Probably does.
Laurent's good behind him, but what I thought yesterday when I watched him, and although he did basics right, he's just not Josh Cullen. He don't come and dictate play from deep and get it and turn on it. He's just simple, pass it, good at what he does, but he's not as good at Cullen like what he does. And maybe we've been spoiled a little bit, perhaps, but I think he was good, but I'm not sure he was quite as good as, like, he was made out to be Busquets on Twitter last night. He wasn't that good, I didn't think. But I was probably most impressed with Anthony. I think people sleep on him a little bit because of his season at Leeds last year.
Yeah.
People thought, oh, he's not going to do anything. But between him and Sarmiento, I had this discussion with someone else. Anthony excited me a bit more than Sarmiento. Like, Sarmiento's record last season was it was maybe a bit better than Anthony's in the Championship. But I actually do really like Anthony, and I think he's promising. Someone was saying in the comments before that they were disappointed how he doesn't like get his fullback and stuff like that, but he's not got that raw pace that Koleosho's got. He's a bit more like skillful and like methodical with how he goes about it. But Anthony's quick. He did well for the first goal, setting it up, putting on a plate for Foster, and he was good throughout, I thought. Hence why he stayed on till the end as well. So that tells you pretty much everything you need to know. Worrell again at centre half, pretty good. He's solid. He is pretty much a good replacement for O'Shea. Like, that's the best compliment you can give him. He slots in. He's solid. He's good defensively. Is he quick? Is he going to rip up any trees in possession? No, but we've got other lads who can do that. That's what Estev's there to do. Worrell's the defender. Like, you need someone like that. You need some experience in that back line because, as we've said on here before, we haven't got that leader in the back line. Esteve isn't it yet. Perez certainly isn't it, and neither's Roberts. So if it doesn't come from Worrell, where else does it come from? And I think that's why we kind of look so solid to me yesterday. I presume that's in relation to Laurent. I'm not writing him off. Like, I've never said he shouldn't get a chance. I just don't think he's as good as Josh Cullen, which is what I was saying. And
I agree with the point. He's not as good as Josh Cullen, but I thought he did everything right yesterday. But I do agree.
I'm not saying not for a minute am I sitting here saying like he wasn't good, because he was. I just don't think like he's ever going to come into the team and stop someone else getting in. He did have a good game, but I just don't think he was as good as like people made him out to be on Twitter. That was my opinion anyway. I was surprised when I come off and saw like the reaction to his performance, because I just thought he was simple, pass it, nothing spectacular, but good at what he did. I'll give him that. And then I don't think any of the new lads did bad. Hannibal, I was disappointed not to see him like get on the ball much, but off the ball, like, you can't knock what he brings to a team. 110% flying round. He's like that. I'm not going to swear, but that house that every team needs, just flying around.
I always swear on him.
No, I won't do it, but you need him. You need someone like that. And once we can get him on the ball and playing a bit more, he will be perfect for us. And then obviously I'm not going to say much on Sarmiento because I didn't really see much of him. But yeah I think all of them did pretty well. You couldn't knock any of them in the time they've had anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. Some of them met each other and the rest of the team literally last week. So they can't really do much better in some scenarios. My thoughts on Anthony, apart from the assist in the first half, I thought the first half he was a little quiet, but in the second half he really came into it. Thought he was much better in the second half, and as Chris said, he was the only one that stayed on till the end, and I think that does tell a story. Although, even though Corley O'Shaw was not getting in behind, but running at them a lot, he was dragging us up the pitch a lot. But then his end product was just awful. But he were blowing out of his arse, to be fair, was Corley O'Shaw. Hannibal, for me, I thought the game passed him by a little bit, but that's probably what you alluded to there, Chris, about him not getting on the ball as much. But yeah, off the ball, he's flying into tackles, he's putting himself about. I would like to see him on the ball a little bit more. Worrell, I've seen a lot of people praising him a lot, and I do think he was solid. But there was a lot of times where he got dragged out of position. There was the clearly offside goal that they scored, and that came from Worrell being dragged out of position. And that happened a few times. So that does worry me slightly. But again, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because it's only the second time he's played. Again, he's playing with some lads that he's for the first time. So I'll give him the benefit of doubt until he gets to know the system a little bit more. But when it came to actual defending, I thought it was quite solid. He didn't win as many headers as I would have liked him to have won, but he was jumping up against, the big lad, and that's how they play. He's very good in the air and he's very strong. He's not going to come up against somebody like that every single week, so we'll see. But yeah, Sarmiento, I think it's difficult to judge. Same as Chris, because he was only on for 10, 15 minutes. Sam, I'll come to you next, mate. Your thoughts on some of the new lads, because you were nodding along on some of the Laurent stuff that I was saying. Worrell as well. What are your thoughts on them all?
For me, I think Worrell was one of the best new signings on the pitch. I think what he showed was, like, you could see a commanding force at centre half. You could see the makings of another leader in the squad. He's very vocal. You can hear that in the stands, how vocal he is. He's constantly telling his midfielders, his fullbacks, he's constantly ready to receive the ball. I never thought of Joe Worrell as a relatively good ball playing centre-back, but I thought he was pretty good at receiving to feet, getting it wide. He was doing something which I think all centre-backs need to do, which is skip the full-back. You don't always have to play it to your right-back to get it down the line. He was getting it to Koleosho straight away. He was getting it high up the pitch, so I think he was brilliant. Slightly disagree with Chris with regards to Laurent. I think the thing that you have to take into account, there's a bit of a storyline with him. Of course, he's a £500,000 player. We didn't pay a lot of money for him. Nobody expected him to come in and be a starter. He's come into I don't know what I've just broken there. He's come in to replace Cullen. And I don't think he did a foot wrong. The only thing that I think you could give him a bit of stick for is I think he slowed midfield down slightly. But you can't ask a player to play like somebody else. Cullen's smaller. He's got a lot more ability on the ball. So Cullen is going to be able to get us ticking a little bit quicker. I think with Laurent, he gave us that physical force in midfield that we were all saying at the start of the season. We were crying out for just somebody big in centre midfield who can just shove a midfielder out of the way, get the ball back and get it played left and right and let the creative players do the work. That's what his role was in the team, and I think he did it brilliantly. Jayden Anthony, I agree with you. I think at the start, brilliant cross, showed the glimpses there, and then kind of didn't really want to go at his man in the first half, but then in the second half, his link-up play with Pires was brilliant. Playing in those triangles on that left-hand side was great. He was beating his man to the ball. The only thing that I wish he'd do is sometimes when he's already beat that first man, just get it across the box. Like, you don't have to cut back and try and get it on your favoured foot. Like, if you can get a ball in with your left foot drilled across the box, the chances are it spills around and bounces around and you get an opportunity from that. It's better than, turning and not getting it into the box. I think Hannibal was good. It was more in the first 15 minutes when I think we were most on top in the game and showing how we could really play, where the link-up play was working, getting into the box. We were playing well in and around the box, and it was penetrating the back four. It wasn't just passing around the edge of the box for the sake of keeping the ball. I think he was vital in that. I think his ability to receive the ball and knock it straight back or take a touch in a tight area and get it out was really good. But then I agree, the game started to pass him by and he started to become a little bit more chasing after the ball, being a bit more tenacious in tackles, which of course you want from a player. But I think that then scuppered the quality that we saw from him. I think he saw his game a little bit more into let's try and win the ball back and get a tackle in rather than let's show what I can do on the ball. With regards to Sarmiento, I actually, in my personal opinion, don't think he should have come on in the 10 role. Unpopular opinion probably, but I just don't think, I didn't think he should have come on in the 10 role, a role that he doesn't normally play. He's normally a lot more effective from the wing. Bringing him on in a position that he doesn't really know how to play, I almost felt like they kind of just plonked him into that 10 role and just said, run around and use your technical ability to get on the ball and play and distribute. He didn't really get close to Foster when he came on, so he wasn't really in and around to receive the ball from feet and get in and around the box. He kept kind of dropping wide, and then it almost felt like we had three right-hand-sided players. And it's, to me, I kind of thought if he'd just either stayed central or whatever, but that also 100% comes from time. These players have been in, barely had an Eggs Benedict of any of these lot so far, so you haven't got a clue like how some of them play. They've not been in training very much, so they're still going to get used to it. I think that is the overriding thing that I thought as well is, this is still a new team. It's still a new manager. We're 4 games in. We've played as biggest rivals at possibly the worst time. And these new lads, I think they've all put a shift in, all showed what they can bring to the team. And I think you can't give any of them stick. I think it just goes back to the overarching narrative to the game, which is it just looked like a team that hadn't played together very often. And we played as biggest rivals, dominated them and got a draw.
Yeah,
we gave company 10, 15 games to get everything ticking. We need to give the exact same time to Scott Parker, and the signs are there for a good team. We just need to penetrate and really try and get chances on goal. That's the only thing for me, is just we need to get chances on goal. All the build-up play in the world, and again, it'll come, but all the build-up play in the world, to get it to the edge of that box or get it to the byline and not have a shot on goal is frustrating for a fan. But
yeah,
can't knock any of the new signings, can't knock the lads. I think it were a good performance, personally.
Yeah, fair enough. No, I agree on the we need to be more penetrative, but I also agree on the fact that this, like you said, a lot of these lads hadn't seen it. Like, it was quite obvious in the first 10 minutes. I know we ended up scoring not long after that, or even I can't remember exactly when the time of the first goal was. But I remember in the first 10 minutes, I think it was Perez overlapped Antony, and then he stopped, and then Antony played it down the line, and then Perez that sort of like checked his run and then tried to get the ball. And you could see there were moments where they were disjointed. That got better as the game went on. Obviously, in the second half, I thought Antony and Perez played quite well. Well, not defensively, but we'll get into that later maybe. But I just feel like it will get better, 100%. I know I've said it about 3 or 4 times now on here, but these lads have just met each other. Scott Argrew says, love your channel, guys. Keep up the great work. Absolute legend, Scott. Thank you for that, mate. Keep the comments coming in, especially the nice ones like that. But yeah, Andrew, who was your favourite new signing then? Which one were you most impressed with out of the new signings?
I liked Worrell. I wanted us to sign Worrell, I think, when Keane went, Michael Keane. So he's always been a good defender. I think he and Esteve played really well together. Like, if Worrell made a run to go and get the ball, Esteve would come and pick it up. I think them two worked really well together. And he put in some good tackles. He made some good stops. I think he worked really hard, and you could see that he was putting everything into it, and that's all you can ask for. I'll agree with you with Sarabento. We didn't really see much of him, so it's hard to judge him. Laurent, yeah, I liked him. It reminds me very much of like a Dean Marney type player, where he'll do the dirty work, but he'll go under the radar. He's probably not as talented as Cullen. Like, I agree with Chris, when Cullen comes back, he probably will knock him out of the team, but only because of that little bit of extra skill that Cullen's got to get the ball out a little bit quicker. But that's not saying Laurent wasn't good. That he was quite good. And Hannibal's just a little monster, innit? That's just going to wind people up, and just when he gets into it, and when he's, when we've all gelled as a team, he's going to be phenomenal. Like, I think he's going to be the star player this year. Like, he's going to be the fans' favourite player. We just need to gel. But like I say, all the lads, they did well. The new signings did well. Can't complain.
Yeah, fair enough. Rover's fan in the chat who's not been a bell end, everybody, so I thought I'd highlight it. I'm going to butcher your name, so I apologise. In fact, I'll just call you Abu, because I'm not going to butcher that name. But he says, Rover's fan here, things will come together for you lot, just like the other season under company. Yesterday, there were loads of different opinions on the game, but it was a solid game, had everything on it. Then he goes on to say, see what he would see. I don't block every Blackburn fan unless he now says we're hey Dingles F off or something. Then yeah, he will get blocked. But earlier the comment, he obviously got blocked. Not Abu obviously, but somebody else, because he was just being a dick. But yeah, fair enough. I completely agree with you, mate. That's what we've been saying for like the last 20 minutes, 40 minutes. We will get better. But yesterday, Chris said in his fan reaction that Chris who said it, or it might be somebody else that a draw was a fair result. But I do feel myself that we were the better side and just couldn't get it over the line. But it's difficult when you're playing against a back nine. Another thing that there's been a bit of talk about on the hashtag, lads, and Chris, I'll come to you first on this one, I think. And there's been some comments in the chat about it as well. Manuel Benson obviously came on yesterday, was all right. I might be being a little bit harsh here, but was completely ineffective. But to be fair, the fullback had clearly done his work on him. We all know Benson likes to cut inside. The fullback was showing him down the line every single time. And then once Benson goes down the line, that's not where he wants to be. He wants to be cutting inside and going for the shot. So he kept getting lost, kept going down the line, then cutting it back, then losing it, or going down the line, crossing it either too deep or not good enough. Or he did manage to cut inside at one point and had the shot. And I even shouted, he's going to do it. And then he did, but it went high, wide, and handsome. But yeah, right, that's it, Abu. You've been blocked. No, I'm joking. You don't. Obviously then went off with what looked like a silly injury. Like I don't think anyone was near him at the point when he limped off, and it's just becoming too much now with Manuel Benson, isn't it? We all love him because of the goal that won the league at Ewood Park, because of the fact that he did it so many times, in so many games in the Championship winning season. But that's two managers now that don't seem to want to start him. There's been rumours of him having a bad attitude, just rumours of him having a bad attitude in training and stuff. And then now he just seems to have picked up another injury, and who knows, we could see him on the sidelines again for a while. What are your thoughts on Manuel Benson, mate, and the current situation surrounding him?
First thing I will say, the left back did second half. He was fantastic. So he come on against a tough opponent because he was probably their best player. That full back. Second half, he did a number on Benson and Koleosho. So he had a good game. So take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt. But I think when I came off and I got back in the car, I was like, I don't want to see him play again. I think I probably overreacted a little bit. But when he went off, and he's like, bear in mind, it's a derby game. So there's that context. We had last kick of the game to pump a free kick forward. And he was sat on the floor doing this to the bench. You want to come off? Just get up and get on the pitch and go and stand up front. You're not going off with 10 seconds left. You're not going off. So either get off and walk down the tunnel and do us all a favour, or just go and stand in the box and hope the ball drops you and just smash it. Just do something, but you're not going off with 10 seconds to go. And Roberts was giving him jip on the floor as well. It's other players are probably sick of it as well. When he come on, I thought, this is it here now. This is going to change the game. Coming on against tired legs, that's where everyone says he's at his best. But to me, come on, and he was just ineffective. He looks slow. I don't know whether he's overweight or what. I'd hope he isn't, but he is a stocky lad. And he just did nothing. I think with Benson, when he first came in and he hit that real purple patch, you thought, yeah, he's the real deal. But no one knew anything about him. No one knew he was all left foot and he'd all come in. Now everyone knows Manuel Benson. He's coming in on his left and he's going to cross it. He's coming in on his left. He's going to shoot. Like you said, they were showing him down the right because they know he's not going to do anything. He gets down the right and his first cross on his right, he put it out near enough for a throw in, and you're like, well, that's why they're showing you down the right, man. Well, you've got to have some variation. He doesn't even have that bit of skill where let's say I watched Odegaard today for Spurs and he's got that step over in him or that bit of skill to just work that yard. Benson's he jitters forward, he'll move, and then he'll come in on his left or he'll dive on his right. It's predictable what he's going to do. To me, the big, the overriding thing for two managers to both think the same thing about him, where Company doesn't pick him and we all thought, yeah, it's Company. And then for Parker to do the same thing, you now know it probably wasn't Company. It's probably Benson. There is some issue there with Benson for me. And I wouldn't sell him, certainly not to Leeds, if that was the option. And I will say he will have an effect on one game, one more game minimum. He'll come on and do something. Everyone will be like, oh, he's back. Because he will. He's just that sort of player. He can pick his nose Monday to Friday, and it's Saturday. He'll just do something. There'll be a game this season where we're crying out for him. He'll come on and he'll just do something. Everyone will be like, wow, he's back. But I just can't really see a future for him. He just
he's
too soft. He's too soft. Every time he comes on the pitch, he gets injured, and it is frustrating because he's just not cut out for English football.
That's the problem for me. He's just clearly made of glass. It's always getting injured. And I know it's not technically his fault, or is it? It could be a mentality thing. You know, like how some players do play on through the pain barrier and things like that. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he just can't be arsed, or he gets a niggle. But there was a comment earlier, which I did put on screen. I think it was from regular viewer Sui, that said it looked like he was in tears as he was walking off. So we'll see what happens with him. But there's been some comments saying the last time we see him in a Burnley shirt, probably not. Might be the last time for a couple of months if it is a bad injury. But he's obviously one of them. He likes a bad injury. Big shout out to Milltown Dingle, by the way, who's just joined and become a YouTube channel member. Obviously, you can do that as well. If you're watching this on a browser, there'll be a little button underneath that says "Become a Member." You can do that on there, and then you get benefits such as early release of the pre-game shows and things like that. So it's interesting to hear what people have got to say on Manuel Benson. So, Chris, I've already done you. I'm going to say I'll come to you. Andrew, I'll come to you next. It's interesting, isn't it? I personally think I agree with Chris. I think he's a bit of a one-trick pony. And as much as we all love him, I'm probably being a bit harsh saying one-trick pony. To be fair, Chris didn't actually say that. He alluded to it. But I think he's a bit of a one-trick pony. If he can't cut inside, or if a fullback has done the research on him, he seems lost, doesn't he? Like I said, the fullback was showing him down the line, and he didn't know what to do because he's not being let inside and to bend it in. I feel like there's not much he can do, and his injury record is a massive worry.
Yeah, I think the fact that he's only played, has he even played an hour for us in the last 12 months? Like, he's not really had much game time. Yeah, not had much game time. So I don't really want to knock him. He is made of glass. Like, his feet are, his legs are just made of glass. Like, he does seem to get injured every single time he steps foot on the pitch. And like both you and Chris said, like, everyone knows he wants to cut in on his left foot and curl it in top corner. Like, that's all he wants to do. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because we do know that he can do that. Like, he's shown before he can do that in the Championship, especially like those lot knew that that's what he can do. But I think he just needs like a bit of game time in him. I don't think, like, I've seen quite a few people saying that he doesn't want to be here. Don't think that's the case. Like, you could tell how gutted he was when he went off yesterday. Like, he wants to show what he can do, and if he wants to move, if he doesn't want to be here, he doesn't seem to me like the type of player who can't be asked. Like, he seems to me he's gonna show what he wants, like what he can do, so he can get that move. So I do have a feeling like it could be one of the last times we see him in a Burnley shirt. Just because, at the same time, I kind of hope not, because I feel like he deserves a chance.
Fair enough. You broke up a little bit there, Andrew, to be fair. So we all got a little bit confused. But Sam, I'll come to you next, because you, obviously, for full context, to those who don't know, Sam lives in Leeds. He knows a lot of Leeds fans for his sins. But you were quite vocal, weren't you, when there was rumours about us potentially selling Benson to Leeds, and I think your actual words were, I can't have him being sold to Leeds, because you didn't want all your mates to fall in love with Manuel Benson like you did. But obviously you're a big fan of Benson, as we all are. What did you feel about the way you came on yesterday? Was largely ineffective, and then just went off with yet another injury?
I mean, I agree, he's made of glass, but the whole time I was listening to you all speak, the only thing I could think of is, you know, the scene in Spider-Man with the Green Goblin, where he's like, in spite of everything you've done for him, eventually they'll hate you. The bloke has literally won us the title at Ewood Park. He's been injured. I get it, right? I get it. But you can't help an injury. We've seen injured players in the past, you know, who unfortunately continuously get injured. The only thing that you can really say about Benson is he's injury prone. He might not have wanted to be here at a certain time. We all said last season when we went into the Premier League that Manuel Benson should play. But we're all the same people that say that he shouldn't start a game because he's more effective off the bench. So you can't have your cake and eat it, and then not like. Do you know what I mean? You've got to back up the same kind of points that we all say. We always say Manuel Benson's not a starter. So when he doesn't start, it's not new news. It's not something that we don't all believe in our heads anyway. We don't think he should start games because he's ineffective if it's not off the bench. Maybe Benson's aspirations are to be a starter. Maybe the English league is not suited to him as a player because he gets injured over and over again when he plays. All I think is, there's no reason to think Manuel Benson shouldn't play in a Burnley shirt. I saw a lot of it on the hashtag yesterday saying he should never play again. What has the guy actually done to make people actually dislike him? Like when he came on to an ovation, and yeah, fair enough, he didn't totally get into the game and got injured. But first of all, you can't blame a guy for getting injured. Second of all, you can't blame a guy who can't get into the same game that Luca Koleosho couldn't get into, who we all think is absolutely unbelievable and can beat his man all the time. He had 2 successful dribbles out of 9. And I love Luca Koleosho, and I still think he was effective in the game. But he had 2 successful dribbles out of 9. No one talks about how poor Koleosho played from a goal-scoring standpoint, from a chance creation standpoint, from all this stuff. No one said anything, but the 10 minutes that Benson came on and also was ineffective, everyone's like, "Oh, I shouldn't ever wear the shirt again. He should never play." It's like, I just find it ever so slightly weird. Like, we all want Benson to be around. We were all gutted when we found out that he was potentially going to leave. If he was going to leave to somebody in the English division, thank God it wasn't Leeds, because as soon as he signs for Leeds, that those legs are coming back. They're made out of titanium. There's no injuries, and he's going to start whipping balls in from that right hand side and cutting inside, and it's going top bins every time. And Leeds will fall in love with him, and that would be horrible for me. It would be horrible. So I am glad he's still here, and I get people's perspectives on about his injury history and all that type of stuff. But I think the injury history and his proneness to being injured is the part where I completely back everybody up. I get that, but the side of him that says he doesn't want to be here, like, this is the same Lyle Foster that kicked off at training and said he wanted to move. And then when that didn't happen, everyone's like, "Oh, brilliant, Foster's in the team. We don't need to go buy a striker." But when Foster was leaving, we need a striker. We need to replace Foster. Like, honestly, it's the same argument for all the players. And in my opinion, you can't write Benson off. You know what he brings to the team. And I do agree with the maybe one-trick pony thing and things like that. But if it doesn't work, it is what it is. Like, he's brought us some brilliant moments. He's won us the league at Ewood Park. We might not see him because of him being injured. But saying that he can't, play a role for us, or he's never going to play in a Burnley shirt again, in my opinion, is just slightly far-fetched. That's all.
Fair enough. It took 55 minutes to get a Sam rant, but we got one, and it was beautiful. Everybody loves the Sam rant. We've got a Leeds fan in the chat. Before I want to mention the Leeds fan in the chat, because it's going to be a nice bridge to my next point, which is obviously the next game is Leeds away. I want to quickly discuss that before we get onto the man of the match shouts and then start wrapping it up. But JB Sports says, very good performance all round. The new boys did well, so very optimistic. Those who regularly watch the channel, you may have noticed that JB Sports tends to be one of the most negative ones on here. So if he's positive, then we've done something right. But yeah, there's a Leeds fan in the chat, and he says, "Evening all. I must say I'm not looking forward to you lads rocking up at Ellen Road. I'll be honest with you, we all love Leeds," which is factually incorrect because we all don't. I'm not looking forward to going there. So it looks like a lot of people aren't really looking forward to it. But yeah, I think Leeds will be, we'll get into it in the pre-game show in a couple of weeks, but I think Leeds will be the favourites going into that, and deservedly so. That's a game I'm not looking forward to. It's going to be a long afternoon. And Sam, I know you've just had a rant, but I'll come to you first on this one because you're, like I said earlier, from Leeds. You know a lot of Leeds fans. What are your thoughts going into that game? It's obviously a big one, isn't it? And I know we've said already a couple of times, we looked at the start of the season. We didn't want to be playing Blackburn so early on in the season because we felt like we'd be a new team starting to gel directly after the transfer window. We obviously didn't realise how many players we'd sell, how many new players we'd bring in yet again. But it's happened. And when I saw the start of the season, I didn't realise Luton would be gash. So I saw Luton away, tough fixture. Obviously, they're dreadful now. Although I did say a lot of people predicting Luton to win the league were silly, considering they'd lost Barclay and somebody else in the middle and Townsend. Lokonga, wasn't it? And obviously Lockyer. It's just not the same team anymore. But when I saw the start, I did think they'd be hard. So I thought Luton away would be a difficult fixture. Then we had Cardiff at home, didn't we? Then Sunderland, I didn't think Sunderland would do as well as what they are doing. Obviously, it's fair, but I remember thinking it was a tough fixture. Then Blackburn, always a tough fixture because it's a derby. And then Leeds away. I'd have bit your hand off for 9 points in them first 5 games. But obviously, we're coming into the Leeds game. It's going to be a tough game. Sam, your thoughts going into that next game?
Yeah, it's a tricky start to the season, to be fair, from a fixture perspective. I think Leeds is always a tricky game, regardless of what division you're in. For me personally, there's a little bit more emotion in there, just because there's numerous group chats that could absolutely rinse me if we lose. But I think for me, it's a tough game. It's another time where you wish you weren't playing Leeds. At this point, like, you'd rather be playing them in like 5-6 weeks. I know we've got an international break in between, but it's a tough game. They've hit form. They are adding new players in as well who also need to get up to speed, but they looked good against Hull. I think my thing with the league though is I don't think I think at the start of the season when we played Luton, that team was the consensus number 1 team in the division. I don't think there is one now, in my opinion. I don't think there is. I think there'll be 4 or 5 teams that'll be in there. I don't think you'll see a runaway team at the top of the table this year. I think you'll see it's very tight, it's very close, and I think Leeds will be one of those teams. I think they've got a tricky set of players. They've got a good core of players as well in Ampadu and Roden. I think they've got pace on the wings now as well with Nonto and Dan James. They've got players to come off the bench. AO came on yesterday. Looked really, really good for them against Hull. I think they've recruited pretty well. So I think it'll be a tough game altogether. I think I'd like to think that, like I say, we've got the international break in between. We've got a bit of time for the squad to gel together and get things going. And hopefully it's a competitive game with 2 teams that will be there or thereabouts come the end of the season. I think it's a tough one to call. They've been good. They're also in a similar place to us. Like, they've had players come back from loan and players come back from injury that they can throw into the team. Like, they've had Brennan Aronson and they've got Wober who can play a part. The only thing that I'd say for the game is just have shots, because Meslier is rubbish. Like, genuinely, if we can get the ball in and around the box and have shots, he will spill the ball and we will have chances like that. One of the overall things that I can say from watching him constantly is just shoot at Ilan Meslier, because he is horrendous.
Fair enough. No, good little preview there. Don't need to do a pre-game show now because Sam's done it for me. Quick shout out to Nathan Smith, who has just become a member for 8 months. Probably our longest serving member there, Nathan. I don't know. You might not be. I think you probably are. But if you are watching on YouTube, you obviously see the nice little badge he's got next to his name. So if you want one of them, then you have to become a member. But you also get other benefits as well, like I said earlier, like early release of the pre-game show. But yeah, fair enough, Sam. No, I do agree with that. I don't think Meslier is as good as I originally thought he was. I did think he'd be a good goalkeeper, but he just doesn't seem to be kicking on. I do worry about Leeds. I worry about the pace on the wings. I think Leeds are at the minute better than us, but I do also agree with the consensus in the chat that we will be a different Burnley side by then, because these lads might actually know each other's names, because at the minute, as Sam brilliantly put it earlier, they've not even had an Eggs Benedict. Never heard that term before, but I love it. But they're going to know each other a bit more. They're going to know the style of play a little bit more. They're going to know the roles a little bit more. So yeah, I do think we'll be better when we go to Leeds than what we were yesterday against Rovers. But will we have enough to beat Leeds at Ellen Road? I'm not sure, but I do agree with the point of testing Meslier as much as possible. We all love Leeds. Says, for context, at this point last year we had 3 points out of 12. I'm thrilled to have 8. Considering 90 will almost certainly be a promotion spot this time. I feel like we feel the same as well, don't we, lads? Like, had a slower start than this under Vincent Kompany that year. We the first 4 games that we had under Kompany were a win at Huddersfield, a draw at home to Luton, then a defeat at Watford. Then a draw at home to Stoke or Blackpool? I can't remember, but we didn't have many points at this stage, so we are doing better than what we were under Kompany at this stage. Chris, I'll come to you next. Your thoughts on the upcoming game at Ellen Road in a couple of weeks' time?
Yeah, like Sam said, it's going to be a tough one. I think, like, probably right now they are better than us. They've probably kept more players together in the team than we have, which that's definitely helped them because they're not putting a whole new team together like we essentially have. But
yeah,
I also, in the back of my mind, and I was reluctant to say it because it's probably going to come back and bite me, but I think it's a game that suits us a bit more. Like, when you've just put a team together, and we had this same thing under Kompany. When you put a team together and it's a bit disjointed, and someone plonks 10 men on the edge of your box, it's difficult to play against. It's difficult to break down. Sometimes, like, you're better when the game opens up. And Leeds are at home. Leeds are going to have a game against us, and Luton did that as well. And I know it's a different team. I'm not saying that, but I think it's a game that will suit us a bit more. But to me, it's out wide. It's the fullbacks and out wide, like Leeds going forward, that really worries me. Like the thought of Dan James running like in behind Perez or running at him, and whether Nonto is going to play, whoever it is playing out wide for Leeds against our fullbacks, that's the main worry for me. It's going to be keeping the back door shut. But when that game opens up, I think we'll have more chance to play, more chance to get into better areas than we did against Blackburn, because it simply won't be the same kind of game where you've got to break 10 men down or 9 men on the edge of your own box. So I think a game that suits us more, but tough game. I wouldn't like to call it yet. But again, 2 weeks on the training pitch, we won't lose many players to internationals. So we've got time to prepare and fully focus for that game. So I'm quietly optimistic.
Yeah, I am as well in a way. I think it'll be a good game. I say I am as well in a way. I'm not sure we'll be able to go there and get a win, but I'm looking forward to the game. I've got a ticket. Anyone going, let me know, because I've only got the one. So as it stands, I'm going on my own. But we are running out of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on. Apologies, Andrew. I know you didn't get a chance to talk about the Leeds game then. But I'm going to move on, and I'll come to you first, Andrew, on this. Obviously, one of the last questions I always ask is, who was your man of the match from the game yesterday, please? So, Andrew, who was your man of the match for Burnley against the Horse Fiddlers yesterday?
I think the referee had a good game to call off their offside, so I'll give it to him. But no, I think Esteve was just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
I think there weren't really anyone who I'd have said played bad. I thought Lauren played well. Thought Cole Yarshaw did all right. But yeah, Esteve was just phenomenal at the back. And as soon as he went off and Egan Riley come on, like, we did look a little bit more threatened, even though we weren't. But yeah, Esteve, he was solid. I think.
Yeah, hopefully
we've got a keeper there.
Yeah, sorry. Hopefully the Esteve injury isn't too bad, because, like you said, he came on, and I thought Egan Riley were poor. If I'm honest, when he came on, there were a couple of silly mistakes that he made, and I do remember getting quite annoyed with him. And one of my friends came round and said he completely lost after the match, and said he completely lost his head with him during the game when he made them mistakes. Sam Lane does there say Egan Riley wasn't good. I completely agree. I thought he was poor when he came on. I was actually quite impressed with him up at Sunderland. Don't know why I'm going full American student inflection there, but I thought it was poor yesterday when he came on. But keep your man of the match shouts coming in. Claret and Blue 82 says Brownhill. Scott O'Sullivan says Jaden Anthony. Oliver Briggs says Brownhill. Claret Owl says Brownhill. Howie Thompson says Hannibal for the shithousing preview. Jaden Anthony says Lee Greenwood. And Grump Nugs says Anthony. Sam, your man of the match, please, mate.
I think Worrell. I think, like you say, at the beginning of the game, I do think he was, maybe missing some headers. But a lot of centre halves would have done. I mean, he's massive there, striker, isn't he? So he's gonna win headers. But I think his recovery from them was really good. I don't think he allowed them to bring the ball down a lot. And I think his ability on the ball was really good. And like I say, I loved how he was stepping us higher up the pitch by missing out a fullback and getting it to the winger. I thought he was defensively very solid. And it's just signs of a leader. I think and a great partnership as well with Steve. So for me, overall, I think it was really good.
Fair enough. And Chris,
I was torn between the two in the comments, Brownhill and Anthony, but I'm going to go for Anthony just because, well, one, he provided the moment that got us going, and two, I just think to come in at a day's notice and produce the performance he did, I think that was just what gave him the edge over Brownhill for me. Well, again, I couldn't really disagree with the other two lads, but I will and go for Anthony.
You know what? I'm going to agree with you, Chris. I was going to go Anthony for exactly the same reason that you said. He literally was signed the day before, and he still was really, really good. I was a little bit more excited with the Sarmiento signing, if I'm honest with you, when we actually made them. I understand that Anthony was really, really good under Parker at Bournemouth, and hopefully he can re-find that form. To be fair, as we've already mentioned, obviously he didn't really do too well at Leeds last year, but he had a lot of personal issues and he was playing behind wingers such as Somerville and Nonto, and to be fair, it's going to be difficult to break into a side with them two. So yeah, for me, my man of the match was Jadon Anthony. I thought he did really, really well. Leo Caldecott in the chat says Esteve or that Lauren. I thought he was class. But yeah, interesting as well. Always good debates to have in the chat. Is there anything else that any of you lads want to provide before we start wrapping it up? Because I start working 20 minutes and Sam's got something to do as well.
What were it yesterday?
It were nice, weren't it? And it's been pissing down here all day as well.
We're boiling though. Like, I was sandwiched in between my dad and someone who looked like a Viking. And honestly, I were in shorts and so were he. I could not let my leg touch him because I was absolutely sweating. I was like that all game, just sat away from him. I was absolutely boiling.
Yeah, no, I do remember thinking walking to the match in shorts, like it's so bizarre watching Burnley against Blackburn in warm weather. It's normally freezing. It's normally November or December. Like it's going to be the same again in January. Obviously, it'll be freezing then when we get the 3 points. But yeah. I'll wrap it up there then. A big shout out to Sam for coming on the show, Andrew, and of course Chris. It's always a pleasure to get the lads on. Opinions on Perez very quickly, says Harry. So I'll quickly do that before I do wrap it up. I thought he had a very good game at Luton, but since then he's looked defensively suspect. He's okay on the ball and can get forward quite well. Andrew, your thoughts on Perez? Quickly, please. Not as in quick talk now, sorry. I meant
I'd probably agree with that. I still think he'll grow into it. I think he'll be a really good signing. Impressed me at Luton. He looks like he's fallen off it a little bit, but we're only 4 games in. I'll give him a bit of time.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get him off corners because as Simon Fisher says, corner always hits the first man. We've gone from Brownhill always hitting the first man to Perez always hitting the first man. Sam, your thoughts on Perez?
Good game at Luton. God, I don't do these quickly, so this will be hard. Good game at Luton. Yeah. I think the only thing I would say is I do think he can be defensively suspect, but I also think he's probably one of the players who's played behind so many different people now so far. I don't think he's solidified who he is playing with at left midfield. So I think when and also, the defensive line's not been totally set because we started with O'Shea and then it's changed now. So I think you'll start to, because the same happened with Maatsen. Maatsen was solid and then he wasn't. And then people said defensively, and it's not always about defensively. It's how you fit the system. I still think he fits the system. And I think he's a good player and he'll grow into it over time. Whoa.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you. That was difficult for you, Sam. I just want to mention there's been a couple of Rovers fans now piping up because we're going and they're getting brave, obviously. Elizabeth Deasy I probably pronounced that wrong. And there was somebody else earlier whose name I can't find now, Neil Farron, whinging about the offside. The worst offside decision I've ever seen, says Elizabeth. What about David Dunn? You weren't all saying that then, were you? Calm as a bitch.
Can I just say about this offside thing as well? Like these lot, like it really winds me up. These lot crying about this offside.
Hypocrites.
But in the first half, they were singing about Martin Olsen taking a dive. So I'm sorry, but if you're going to sit there and cry about being offside, don't sit there singing about Martin Olsen taking a dive.
Yeah, Neil says, ha ha ha, Nibble. How old are you, mate? If you're going to come in and talk about stuff, it's a debate show. We're going to talk back about it, mate.
Did anybody else
like Neil? You're probably in your 30s as well, so you probably need to grow up. Sorry, Sam, go on.
Did anybody else think it was really weird as well how they kept singing chants about Rudy Gestead? Like the bloke has literally not played for about 10 years. I know he's like now director of football at Blackburn and stuff like that, but I mean, honestly, when the day we start making chants for our director of football is another day where I've completely changed sport.
Fair enough. Chris, I'll just quickly come back to the Perez debate because we didn't get to you. Your thoughts on Perez, please, mate?
Yeah, I've said it on here before. He doesn't do anything for me. I thought he was average at Luton, glossed over by 2 assists. He was poor against Cardiff. I know we won 5-0, but he was still poor. He was awful at Sunderland. And I thought he was average yesterday as well. Just, he doesn't do it for me. And I saw someone mention in the comments earlier, and I would do this as well. I'd play Humphreys at left back.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Taking Perez to Leeds actually concerns me. Like, the thought of Perez at Leeds worries me, and it'll keep me up Friday night.
Fair enough. Well, I will wrap it up there. Genuinely need to, start work in a minute. But thank you to Sam, thank you to Andrew, thank you to Chris for coming on. Thank you to everybody in the comments, especially the Blackburn Rovers fans spending their Sunday night on a Burnley YouTube channel. I will say that's pretty pathetic, but we all know how pathetic you lot are after throwing flares on the pitch for a 1-1 draw. But thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you have joined the channel late and the show late, then when I press end stream on here now, you can watch it back at your pleasure whenever you want. And we will, of course, be uploading the podcast for you to listen to on your way to work or school, or if you're a Blackburn fan, on the way to the stables in the morning. But thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we will see you next time.
Bye.